Welcome to science class today. Today is Monday, April 20th, 2020. This is third hour science. Today's lesson is 3.3, Plant Adaptations to Environmental Changes. Our learning objectives today are to explain how plants respond to changes in their environment, and to identify special adaptations in plants. Today's review questions, we have 3 of them. First one is, what are 2 reasons a plant responds by moving or bending? Number 2, how do plants respond to daily and seasonal changes? And number 3, define and give examples of xerophytes and epiphytes. Okay, that brings us to discussion on our questions. We learned that plants can detect and respond to changes. Plants can't move from danger. Think about the tree in your yard. Can it move? Plants are typically held in place by soil. So plant responses, we know plants cannot move around. So how can they respond to changes in their environments? A plant's primary way of responding is to change how it is growing. One way is to turn or bend in a certain way, usually towards the sun or the light. Plant tropism. Plants do this for a couple of reasons. Again, they can't move, but they can turn and bend. They do that for a couple of reasons. They turn and bend because of gravity. They also turn and bend because of light. A plant can sense gravity. It responds to any changes it senses. Plant roots always grow downward. You can feel gravity every time you jump into the air. A plant can feel it too. A plant has special cells in the tips of its roots. These cells detect small changes in gravity. If you turn a plant on its side, what will happen? The plant roots will start to grow downward. That's natural gravity. A plant can also respond to changes in light. Plant stems and leaves grow toward light. The house plant in our picture can show that effect. This plant receives light mainly from the left. Over time, it grew in that direction. A lot of house plants do that because of the irregularity of the light. So daily and seasonal responses of plants. Plants also detect the daily cycle of light and darkness. Do you know how plants respond to these changes? Some plants open their leaves during the day. It is during these hours the plants can collect sunlight. At night, the plant closes its leaves to prevent water loss. Many plants respond to the change in the length of day. As days grow shorter, some plants respond by going dormant. Dormant is when a plant suspends its growth. It does this in order to survive. Shorter days signal the coming of winter. As winter approaches, some plants respond by their leaves changing color. After the change in color, the leaves fall off. This dormancy period allows them to survive cold and dry winters. Plants only want to grow when conditions are right. Plant responses to diseases. Plants don't have an immune system like we do. That doesn't mean they do not get sick. Plants are affected by diseases just like we are. Typically, their first line of defense is the death of a part of the plant. This prevents the infection from spreading. Many plants also produce chemicals to fight disease. Plants may be smarter than we think. They can produce chemicals that warns other plants. Plants with special adaptations. Plants that live in water are called aquatic plants. Living in water has certain benefits. The plant does not need special traits to absorb, transport, or conserve water. They do not need a large root system. They do not need a strong stem to hold up the plant. The plant uses water for support. Some aquatic plants have floating flowers and leaves. An example in your reading shows the water lilies. It also shows a picture of cattails, which are pretty common in our area. So let's talk about xerophytes. Some plants do not get enough water. They live in places that are very dry. So how can they get and keep water? Plants that are adapted to these places are called xerophytes. Their traits help them survive. They need to have a large water intake. They also need to be able to conserve water and store water between rains. The saguaro cactus, which is shown in the picture, has adapted in all three ways. The cactus has a huge root system. It allows the cactus to gather a lot of water during rare rainfalls. The saguaro doesn't have any leaves. Leaves are where water can be lost. It has a large barrel-like shaped stem. Thorns protect the stem from thirsty animals. So what are epiphytes? Plants called epiphytes grow on other plants. They obtain moisture from the air. Most epiphytes are ferns or orchids. They live in places that are very humid. Host trees provide support for the plants. They cling to trees high above the forest floor. These plants, like all plants, need sunlight to survive. Being elevated may also reduce the risk of being eaten by animals. So carnivorous plants, what are they? Carnivorous plants are plants that get some or most of their nutrients by eating other organisms. They trap and digest insects or other small animals. Carnivorous plants have adapted to grow where the soil is poor in nutrients and can often be found growing on rocky outcrops. Venus flytraps are well-known carnivorous plants. They sense the fly, and they're kind of open, their leaves are, and they sense the fly, go in, and they close their leaves and trap it. So in summary, our lesson, a plant's main response to stimuli is to change how it is growing. For example, plant roots grow towards Earth's gravity. Stems and leaves bend towards sunlight. Plants also respond to daily and seasonal changes and to disease. Some plants have evolved special adaptations to extreme environments. Such plants include aquatic plants, xerophytes, epiphytes, and carnivorous plants. Get your questions answered, get your answers on paper. We'll talk a little bit more tomorrow, and we'll also talk about the crossword puzzle. Have a great day. This concludes our lesson for Monday.